Gentlelady yields back chair, and I recognize Mr. Donalds from Florida.
Thank you, Chairman. To piggyback off my colleague, Governor Pritzker, how much does the state of Illinois spend on illegal immigration every year?
Again, illegal immigration, that's a federal responsibility. They could tell how much is wasted as a result of their failures.
Governor, don't you keep track of how many people are on your Medicaid rolls, how many people who are illegal immigrants in the state of Illinois who are getting actually benefits in your state? Doesn't your government keep track of that?
They don't get Medicaid in Illinois or any state, as far as I know.
Governor Pritzker, you do not keep track of any public service dollars in the state of Illinois that goes to illegal immigrants or goes to people in your state who are not legal residents of the United States and of the state of Illinois. You don't keep track of that.
We absolutely keep track of our budget, and we're very closely, and in fact, it's been balanced for 7 years in a row, unlike the Republican before me, yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I noticed that in the state of Illinois, you guys don't really keep track of your money, because I asked your mayor in Chicago similar question about a month ago, and he didn't have an answer. It was quite interesting. I think this might be an Illinois problem. Governor Hochul, in your state, you are spending about roughly $4 billion on illegal immigration, and at the same time, you are actually asking the federal government for $4 billion to finish Penn Station. Don't you think it would be better to stop funding illegal immigrants in your state and actually use those resources to finish Penn Station as opposed to coming to the federal government for the money?
Welcome back to America First, the channel where we put our nation and our citizens before politics and political correctness. I'm your host, and if you believe in securing our borders, protecting American taxpayers, and holding our elected officials accountable, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content that the mainstream media won't show you. Today, we're breaking down explosive footage from a recent congressional hearing where Republican representatives absolutely grilled Democrat governors on their reckless spending on illegal immigration. What you're about to see is exactly why elections have consequences and why every American needs to pay attention to what's happening in their state capitals.
For the money.
Penn Station is owned by Amtrak, not by the state, so it's an appropriate use of their dollars, and Donald Trump has agreed to spend upwards of $7 billion. I appreciated that very much. What we spend on immigrants, the immigrants who are here hardworking to live a life and working on our farms and taking care of our parents in nursing homes and taking care of our children, they have been coming here for 400 years. And we don't keep track of individuals based on their status. We make sure that people have services so we don't end up with an unexpected.
So essentially what you're telling me is that you keep no track of money that is going to people who are not legal in the United States, resources that are taken away from New Yorkers, resources that are taken away from Illinoisans. You guys do not keep track of any of this.
You know what's really challenging is that many people came here with legal status. I mean, temporary protective status, 300,000.
Do you
all of a sudden they wake up one day and it's gone.
Do you go along with the strategy from the Biden administration, which massively expanded immigration protocols that overwhelmed your city and overwhelmed your state? Do you agree with that?
We call for secure borders. We call for this body to
I never
do its
remember
job.
you calling for secure borders at all, Governor Hochul.
We certainly have.
That
We
doesn't
certainly
sound
have.
like him to my memory.
Many conversations I had with the White House. We asked for federal resources. I mean, you're putting a federal problem on our laps, and you know what? It gets old after a while. I wish you would just do your job.
If your
here
party
and
actually would
pass
do the job of
meaningful
securing
reform.
the nation the way President Trump has now had to do twice, we wouldn't be in this predicament. Wouldn't you agree? Do you agree or disagree that securing the nation's borders is the job of the President of the United States? President Trump has done that job twice now.
Well,
And previous Democrat presidents have not done that job. Wouldn't you agree with that?
this has been a problem that's been in place since I was a young staffer here on Capitol Hill. We worked on immigration, and Ronald Reagan signed amnesty for 3 million people.
You know, it's
to
interesting
get
you
out
bring
of
up
the situation, so-
Reagan's amnesty in '86. You know, part of that deal was to actually build border wall and secure it, but the Democrat Party refuses to build border wall. You oppose it every single time. Is that your position? Do you now support border walls,
There
Governor
has
Hochul?
been many times when bipartisan legislation is presented to this body and people just walk away from it. They refuse to do the hard work of governing like governors like us have to do every single day. When I leave here, I'm going to go home and govern a state. I'm not going to tweet about this experience because I have too much work to do taking care of New Yorkers. And
You're
keeping
really
them
not doing a
safe.
good job, Governor Hochul, because a lot of New Yorkers are actually coming into my state, in Florida, many of them. They come all the time because they actually want to come to a state that is well-run, that protects citizens, does not allow illegal aliens to victimize citizens like they are victimized in the state of New York like they are victimized in the state of Illinois, like they are victimized in the state of Minnesota, they choose states like Florida and Texas to find safer places to live and raise their families. Hold on, Governor Hochul. We've had enough
crime
time.
rates are much
Governor
lower
Walz,
than
you've been
yours,
sitting over there
much
pretty
lower.
quiet. I got a question for you.
I love to talk. Thank you, Congressman.
Fair enough. You said earlier that the ICE agents under the orders of President Trump are a modern-day Gestapo. Do you realize how disgusting a phrase that is, considering the history of Nazi Germany? Would you like to recant that statement?
What I said, Congressman, and I have a long history of supporting law enforcement, I said President Trump was using them as his modern-day Gestapo, not identifying who you are, coming up in unmarked vans, taking people away and giving...
Is it the responsibility of ICE to actually deport illegal aliens in the United States who are here? Isn't that their responsibility?
Yes, it is, Congressman, except that the Constitution is not an inconvenience. It's not an either-or.
Nobody
You
said
can
an
do your job
inconvenience.
and
You have a
practice due process.
responsibility to deport illegal aliens, and the
Through due
president is
process.
going through that process right now.
We are
And
not
let's be very clear, the previous administration, they abused every process there is under border laws to allow more than 10 million people into the country illegally. And this is a burden on all Americans. And so the president is doing his job. So it is sick to refer to Americans who are ICE agents as Gestapo. Governor, you're wrong. You need to apologize to these agents. They're doing their jobs. They are Americans. They serve this country with honor and decency and respect. Do not diminish their work simply because you tried to make a cheap point that you could tweet. I yield back.
Chair now recognizes Ms. Stansberry from New Mexico.
Let's start with Governor Pritzker from Illinois. When Representative Donalds asked him a simple question about how much Illinois spends on illegal immigration each year, Pritzker couldn't give a straight answer. Think about that for a moment. This is a governor of a state that's been drowning in debt for decades, and he claims he doesn't track how much taxpayer money goes to people who shouldn't even be in this country legally. Either he's lying or he's completely incompetent as a fiscal manager. Neither option is acceptable. The congressmen press him on whether Illinois tracks how many illegal immigrants are on Medicaid rolls or receiving other public benefits. Pritzker's response? He claims they don't get Medicaid in Illinois or any state as far as he knows. This is either willful ignorance or deliberate deception. We know that sanctuary states and cities have been providing services to illegal immigrants for years, often using creative accounting and federal loopholes to hide the true cost from taxpayers. What really got my attention was when Pritzker tried to deflect by bragging about balancing his budget for 7 years in a row. But here's the thing. When you're not honestly accounting for all your expenses, especially the massive costs associated with illegal immigration, of course your books are going to look better on paper. It's like claiming you're financially responsible while hiding your credit card bills. Representative Donalds made an excellent point when he mentioned asking Chicago mayor a similar question about a month ago and getting no answer. This isn't coincidence. This is a pattern. Democrat-run cities and states don't want Americans to know how much of their hard-earned tax dollars are being spent on people who broke our laws to get here. Now, let's talk about Governor Hochul from New York. The numbers here are staggering. New York is spending roughly $4 billion on illegal immigration, while simultaneously asking the federal government for $4 billion to finish Penn Station. Representative Donalds asked a perfectly reasonable question. Wouldn't it be better to stop funding illegal immigrants and use those resources for infrastructure projects that benefit actual New Yorkers? Hochul's response was telling. She tried to deflect by saying Penn Station is owned by Amtrak, as if that somehow justifies the fiscal irresponsibility. Then she went into this romanticized speech about immigrants who have been coming here for 400 years, working on farms, and taking care of children and elderly. But here's what she conveniently left out. There's a massive difference between legal immigrants who follow our laws and contribute to our society and illegal aliens who break our laws from day one. The governor claimed they don't keep track of individuals based on their status, which is exactly the problem. When you refuse to distinguish between legal and illegal immigrants, you're essentially operating an open borders policy funded by taxpayers who had no say in the matter. This isn't compassion. It's fiscal recklessness that puts American citizens last. What really exposed these governors was when they were asked about the Biden administration's immigration policies. Instead of taking responsibility for their own state's problems, they immediately started pointing fingers at the federal government. Governor Hochul said she called for secure borders, But as Representative Donalds correctly pointed out, nobody remembers her calling for secure borders at all. These governors were completely silent when Biden was systematically dismantling every effective border security measure that President Trump had put in place. The congressman made a crucial point that every American needs to understand. Securing the nation's borders is a job of the President of the United States. President Trump did that job effectively during his first term, and he's doing it again now. The previous administration abandoned that responsibility, allowing over 10 million people to enter our country illegally, and now states like Florida and Texas are bearing the burden of that failure. Governor Hochul's response perfectly encapsulated the problem with the Democrat approach to governance. She started talking about bipartisan legislation and how people just walk away from it, but she completely ignored the fact that Democrats have consistently opposed every meaningful border security measure, including the border wall that was part of the 1986 Reagan amnesty deal. Representative Donalds delivered a knockout punch when he pointed out that many New Yorkers are actually moving to Florida because they want to live in a well-run state that protects its citizens and doesn't allow illegal aliens to victimize law-abiding residents. This is a reality that Democrat governors don't want to acknowledge. When you prioritize illegal aliens over your own citizens, people vote with their feet. The exchange with Governor Walz was particularly revealing. This is a man who previously compared ICE agents to the modern-day Gestapo, one of the most disgusting and historically ignorant statements ever made by an elected official. When confronted about this, Walz tried to walk it back by claiming he was only criticizing President Trump's use of ICE agents, but the damage was already done. ICE agents are American law enforcement officers doing their job of enforcing immigration law. Comparing them to Nazi stormtroopers is not only offensive to these brave men and women, but it's also deeply disrespectful to the victims of the Holocaust. The fact that Walz refuses to fully apologize for the statement tells you everything you need to know about his character and his respect for American law enforcement. What this entire hearing demonstrated is the fundamental difference between Republican and Democrat approaches to governance. Republicans believe in the rule of law, fiscal responsibility, and putting American citizens first. Democrats believe in open borders, endless spending on illegal aliens, and political correctness over common sense. The numbers don't lie. States like New York, Illinois, and Minnesota are spending billions of dollars on people who shouldn't be here, while their own citizens struggle with high taxes, failing infrastructure, and rising crime rates. Meanwhile, states like Florida and Texas are attracting residents and businesses because they prioritize law and order, fiscal responsibility, and citizen safety. This hearing also highlighted why President Trump's return to office is so crucial for our country. We need a president who will secure our borders, support our law enforcement officers, and stop the fiscal bleeding that's bankrupting our states. The contrast couldn't be clearer between Trump's America First agenda and the Democrats' America Last policies. As we've seen time and again, when Democrats are in charge, they create problems and then blame everyone else for the consequences. When Republicans are in charge, they actually solve problems and put Americans first. This congressional hearing was just another example of Republican representatives doing the hard work of holding Democrat governors accountable for their failures. The mainstream media won't show you this footage because it completely destroys their narrative about compassionate immigration policies. What you saw here was the ugly reality of how Democrat governors are bankrupting their states while refusing to take responsibility for their decisions. Every American needs to pay attention to what's happening in their state and local governments. Your tax dollars are being spent on these policies whether you agree with them or not. If you don't like what you see, you have the power to change it at the ballot box. That's why channels like America First exist, to bring you the truth that the establishment media won't report. If you found this breakdown informative, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content that puts America and Americans first. Share this with everyone you know, because the more people who understand what's really happening, the better equipped we'll be to fight back against these destructive policies. Thanks for watching America First, and remember, it's not enough to just complain about these problems. We need to stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay united in our fight to put America first.